I think you got a lot of questions
Yes, sir.
because you and the guy sitting to your left has a lot of light on you right now because of your issue in North Louisiana, because his issue with the three people with the, to me, which is an absurd raise. And I think we're fixing to talk about that. We have some questions. Not for you.
What are you talking about?
You can go.
Thank you.
All right.
You don't want to be in this, do you?
I'll be right here if you have additional questions for me.
Okay. All right. Will you state your name?
Yes. Good morning, Byron Decato, Director of State Civil Service. Good morning, Chairman White, members.
Decato.
Decato.
And you're the director.
Yes, sir.
What's your salary?
175,000.
What was your salary a month ago?
175,000.
So you haven't changed.
No,
You have a change pending.
no. I received a pay increase from my commission in September of 2021.
That's right. It was
Yes, sir.
September. And what was that? What were you previous to 9/21?
I believe it was around 156,000.
How long have you been with civil service?
I've been with the Department of State Civil Service since 2010. Prior to that, I was the director at the Department of Corrections for their Human Resources Office. Of almost 24 years of state service, and I've been the director for going on 7 years now.
All right. I have a lot of questions. I want to put them first, but I'm going to let Senator Tarver ask a couple questions, and then I'll come back.
You say your salary in September 21 was 156,000.
I believe, yes.
Okay. Prior to that, let's say in 20, September in 20, how much were your salary then approximately?
So as a classified employee, the increases that I receive as a classified employee are received as market adjustments,
Okay.
which I receive around 2% each year.
Okay.
So when I became director, I do have a copy of it. Hang on.
Could you give us a list of your directors in the last 5 years that received how much their salary was, their names and everything, and break it down, how much
Certainly.
their salary was then,
For my department?
your department, yes.
Yes, sir.
Department of Civil Service. Because everything we've been told that you all have received many increases in y'all pay in the last 4 or 5 years. Tremendous increase that everybody else did not receive. Is this true?
That's a fair question, Senator Tarver, and
But is it true?
it's true. But I
Okay.
would like to, if amenable.
The other employees did not have the opportunity to receive, but you all did have the opportunity to receive because y'all in the higher echelon.
That's
and you just-
yeah. If I may, I would like to
Okay,
address the
may I get through?
situation.
May I get through?
Okay.
The lower echelon was ignored, but the higher echelon received all the pay.
That's not correct.
That's
sir.
not correct,
That's not
okay.
correct. So I would like the opportunity to address the issue that you're bringing up.
Okay.
What was your percent?
My percent, my pay percent was 13%.
13.
Everybody
Yes,
else
sir.
received 13?
No, sir.
Okay. How many people received 13?
Okay. So what you're referencing, Senator Tarver, is a news story that was done at a
yes.
local news station. I will tell you that those payments were in fact true. Those payments were made, but there were several omissions and misconceptions in that particular story that the public did not hear. Our civil service rules, our civil service commission is committed to our classified state employees. You know very well, working with this body and the administration, we were able to bring back pay increases for our classified employees from the previous administration. We worked with this administration to redesign our compensation system. The payments that were made to my employees, specifically the ones in the news story, there were two. The news story, our rules are designed for transparency. Okay, so
Wait, I'm gonna stop you there.
yes,
The last person I talked to before I walked out of my office and walked down here was Jay Darden. He did not know anything about these pay increases, and y'all are up under the division.
we do not report to the Division of
I know,
Administration.
but you're under his umbrella, okay? He did not know about them, nor did he approve them.
The Commissioner of Administration does not.
I know he
approve
does,
our-
and I know Civil Service does. But when you look at the line, they come under him.
Civil Service is a major 20 agency. It is an independent agency that is operated under the State Civil Service Commission. And I have my chairman here, Mr. David DePlanche, with me. So the commissioner does not approve any pay
No,
increases.
I didn't say he approved them. But usually when somebody gets a $40,000-$50,000 raise, usually the commissioner knows.
That's not the case for this. That's not the case.
I know it wasn't the case in this one. He told me he didn't know. Okay? So, how many previous civil service directors have received an individual pay raise of, what was yours, 13%?
13%.
How many previous ones have got a 13% raise once they were on the job?
I cannot recall. I cannot tell you. I would have to
The
look at that
lawyer
information. Sir?
That's a good lawyer answer.
I can tell you that previous civil service directors received a larger increase when they accepted the job. I received a 10.5% pay increase when I accepted that position, which
How
was in
long you been on
accordance
the
with rules.
job?
I have been on the job for almost 7 years.
So in 7 years, you've received 23%, 13 and a 10, or more?
The majority of those pay increases, again, were classified market adjustments, which all classified employees are entitled to. I received one pay increase from my commission. I approached my commissioner, my chairman, Mr. David DePlanche, and asked him to consider an increase in pay based upon the scope and the complexity of my job. At that particular point in time, he worked with the commission and his commissioners to determine if that was going to be something that they were going to entertain. I base that off of my job duties, my statewide responsibilities, and comparable positions within the executive agency branches and the legislative branches.
I'll ask him a question. Did you fill out a card? Because I want to make sure you tell
I
the truth.
did fill one out, Senator. I didn't know whether I was going to be talking, so I did fill it out. And
Okay.
according to the article, what you saw on the television, I'm underground with the underlings. So just so you know, I am not underground.
Well, a lot of people don't know a lot about what y'all do. And I don't think I've ever questioned civil service in almost 20 years.
And that's part of the
But we're in a
problem.
position-
You don't know what we do, and we.
Well, I know what you
You know
do.
what you do.
But it's never been brought into question of these type of raises and this type of money that's given out in a matter of a couple of years. You put a lot of pressure on all of us, to be honest with you. You make us all look bad.
And that's why we're here, and we can answer questions, and we can answer additional questions to explain what we do and what we do for state employees.
And Senator, if I may, I can answer your question directly. The payments that were given, the news article suggested that one of my employees got 11 pay increases and the other got 9. Only 4 of those were given by me. And those were given under a rule called optional pay. Those payments were made in accordance with civil service rules, okay? They were rules that our agencies use throughout state government to retain their employees. If you had an opportunity to listen to me with your peers in House Appropriations, we discussed the current climate that we're in. Our applications are down 52% in the state government. Our job applications, our job positions continue to rise. We continue to have open positions.
I'm gonna back
So
up there.
agencies,
I'm gonna back up there. You're using that. We're all down. Finance committee's down 5 or 6 because of retirements and people are robbing my employees because they're very good. But I can't give my other ones a 20-30% raise, okay, to retain them. That's not an option. Obviously, I'm hoping you're the only department thinks that's an option.
We have agencies that use optional pay, that have used optional pay in multiple years in the same manner which the Department of Civil Service has used it. Those individuals represent less than 3% a year. All of those payments are required to be posted publicly for transparency, so the public can then ask agency heads such as myself, what is the justification for those particular payments? So while those payments are not typical, they are made within the executive branch agency, and they are allowed under our rules because our commission realizes that, just as you said, many people are stealing your employees. Our agencies need to be in a position to be able to retain that institutional knowledge in order to have organizational excellence and to continue providing the services that we need to provide.
I would say something because he gets beat on a lot, but obviously you didn't work under Bobby Jindal as a director. Because we all did more with less.
I was director when Governor
Yeah.
Jindal, yes.
And I was here too when.
Well, I got to ask you this. The Capital Area Human Service District
Yes.
made a request for pay raises for 2 LPNs,
Yes, sir.
and they were denied.
We brought those two individuals' positions to our commission.
That was to keep them going, okay?
So the
And
request.
try to hold on to their nurses. I don't think it was a big request. What was the request?
The request was to increase the individual's pay to the maximum of the pay range.
In their range.
In their range. And all of our rules have caps. All of our rules have ranges because that's how we keep controls on the taxpayers' payroll dollars. In this particular circumstance, when an agency like the Capital Area Human Services, when their nurses come to them and they say, I have a job offer with another particular agency, on the spot, that appointing authority can grant up to 10% in order to retain that employee. In this particular case, a very critical situation. If that 10% does not match what the private entity is offering that employee, they can come to the commission for an individual pay adjustment in which those 7 members will listen to the justification from that appointing authority to determine whether or not those raises were appropriate. In this particular circumstance, the raises were not, the job offer was not comparable to what we normally see. These were job offers for travel nurse agencies, where these individuals were only offered a position for a couple of months on a contract. The commission struggled very hard with this decision because the appointing authority before them said that they would have to shut down that particular program. The commissioners asked the individual appointing authority what would happen, what would they have to do if they couldn't retain those employees. They responded that they would either have to close the program, they would have to do like other agencies and contract out for nurses, or they would have to get staff from other areas. But at the end of the day, the commission currently, as I said, with the medical schedule and our medical field, we are struggling for employees. In this particular circumstance, they didn't think it was apples to apples, that any state employee could go out and get a job offer from a travel agency at this point in time. Therefore, they felt in the best interest of this state that they denied that, because how would they keep control on additional employees coming and asking to have their pay matched by the private industry. So that's how that particular incident played out. Our commission struggled with that, but at the end of the day, they did not feel that it was apples to apples.
So the other people, and I can call their names, but I'm not. You're the director. They got some pretty hefty raises. So were they offered other jobs
So,
at significantly more pay?
so the two individuals that received money in my particular agency, again, these were critical employees for my department. Mine is my deputy director. If I'm not available, he is going to sit in my spot. The other one,
You didn't answer my question.
the
Did they receive offers for significantly higher salaries at another entity?
I know that they were recruited from other individuals, but the rule that was used was compression, and in each individual circumstances, these individuals were in a high-level role within my department, earning less than what their subordinates made. One of the employees actually received promotions. She came up through the ranks, and what I was trying to do with her was to get her to a level playing field of what her peers were making. This was an individual making less than $60,000, and the average of what her peers were making at my department were in the high 90s. She rises above them and is supervising them and is supervising the entire operations of that department, earning less than what her subordinates
What
are
was her
making.
salary raised to?
Her
From
salary-
60, 90 with the peers, what was her salary raised
Her
to?
salary was raised at one particular point in time by 5% based upon our funding and what we had.
Dollars.
I can go step by step if you would like to go step by step.
No, I want to hear the final number. She was at 60. You say her peers were making 90s. What does she make today?
So in the time period discussed, this individual was making $54,849. She is now making $124,904.
So you went from 90 to 124.
Over multiple years when she received payments that any classified...
How many years?
This was from 2015 to 2021. 4 of those payments were optional pay granted by me as the appointing authority. The other payments that she received were market adjustments and promotions that all classified employees receive in those situations.
I don't know of any other department that gets those percentage of raises. There's some secretaries come in at pretty hefty salaries, okay?
Yes, sir.
But I don't know of any other department where the people, where the assistants or the rank and file, with those percentages of what you just said over about 5 or 6 years is over 100%.
In one particular case, yes, it was. And I have to stress, what the narrative is being pointed is that this individual's pay went arbitrarily from $54,000 to $124,000, when over this period of time, she received additional duties, she has received additional staff. When she was making $54,000, this young lady was over 7 employees. She is now over 60-something employees in my department. She meets with appointing authorities and agency heads on a daily basis to provide them with the consulting services that they need to attract and to develop and retain their employees. She is critical to my organization. Therefore, I use the tools that every other appointing authority has available to them in order to retain this individual.
Well, I'll say this. My staff, I think they're some of the best there are in the state of Louisiana. I don't think I could go to president and double any of them's salary. In fact, I know I couldn't. It'd be very hard to justify to everybody else in the department. Very hard. Senator Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'm going to start off with this, Mr. Decatur. I'm going to ask you, what happened to the nurses' situation in the capital area?
The commission did not approve that
It
particular.
didn't approve them. So what happened to the nurses? Do you know?
I do not know. I do not know. Do we know? Have they followed up with? They have not followed up with us. So I do not know if those nurses left or if they stayed.
So they were trying to use the same level of authority that you actually use in your department. Am I correct, to try to maintain those employees?
For one particular employee, they used the authority that I use because they were able to.
So
they
one of them they were able
one
to
of
do?
them, one of them, they were able to grant a 10% increase in pay.
Mm-hmm.
The second individual, they were not able to do that because that employee was on probation. It was a new employee in that particular position, and our rules only for matching a job offer are only for permanent employees. So what they were coming to do, Senator Barrow, was to request an individual pay adjustment from our Civil Service Commission, which essentially says when there's no other rule available and the appointing authority provides justification, the commission will consider.
So I want to know what happened in that
We
situation.
can certainly find out.
Because certainly, as we talk about, I mean, they are dealing with a lot of our mental health cases and the basic health care of people in the capital area, which is, I think, 7 parishes. That's extremely important, and I want to know that. Secondly, I'm gonna kind of go back to the whole pay thing, and I know what you're talking about, and we did talk. I mean, a part of our committee over the past couple of years been talking about how do we keep our best and our brightest and so forth. And I know and I understand with the tool that you used, and I think that was maybe something that you possibly should have done. I mean, I guess looking at from your position, but as you can hear this, it doesn't sound good. So I want to ask maybe Mr. DePlanta, there are 7 commissioners, right?
Correct.
So this came before the commission,
It did.
and all of you voted unanimously?
Yes, we did. And it was a very difficult vote, as Mr. Decatur said. But we did not believe, as he said, one of the individuals has not even been in state government but for a year. And he goes out to get an offer from a traveling nurse agency to, I think, almost double his salary. We didn't think that was appropriate.
You talking about capital area right now, right?
Yes, he's
Yes,
speaking of
and
capital
I thought
area.
that's what you were talking about.
Initially I was, but now I see I'm changing gears, and I'm just going back to the raises that were given to the employees. 3, correct?
Okay.
There were 2 employees
2.
that I have the authority to pay.
And we
my-
reviewed those.
Plus you.
myself, which the commission.
And
has
we
this
are in
authority.
charge of.
So
Mr.
it was just
Decatur.
2 total, including you, or 3?
There were 3, including me. So I have 2 employees. Now keep in mind, we look at this throughout the year. Since I became director, I have granted 31 employees at my agency optional pay for compression when we needed to do that. And I think that illustrates the struggle that appointing authorities are having with the current compensation plan for our classified employees. The main driver of our compensation is that market adjustment. And we came before the legislature, we worked with the governor and the administration to change our system, because for years under the general administration, many agencies either withheld them for budgetary purposes or, quite frankly, for political purposes. And what we did was we worked and we heard what the legislature was saying. Nobody should be getting 4%. Everyone should get some. No, they were not happy with across the board 4%. That everybody got the same thing, regardless of if Regina had where her pay was in a different in relation to her pay range, regardless of performance or anything. We went to the drawing board and we brought forth a compensation package that we think is responsible to our taxpayers. So employees, rather than getting across the board 4%, every July, what they receive is either a 4%, a 3%, or a 2% to get them to market faster, so we were able to keep employees. So that 2% is the taper off. Agencies, and I'm sure you have heard them come before you and in appropriation saying they can't retain their employees. That 2% is not enough. And I've used the
Let me ask you this, the raises for retention, is that the same as compression? It's not.
the raises for compression, for when you say retention, market adjustments?
Yeah, the retain and the compress.
Market adjustments are strictly in a driver to get the individual's pay employee closer to market. And all classified employees, if you are eligible, get those on July 15th every year. This is not enough. We are, I use the analogy, it's the main driver. We're the car in the middle lane of the interstate, and our public and our private markets are passing us up, especially when our surrounding, the unclassified service and other branches of government have not moved away from the 4% or higher.
It's not enough.
It's not.
It's not enough, but it's not enough for everybody, right? So it's unfair that only a few get it. So let me go back. I'm going back to Mr. DePlancher. So the 7 commissioners, which are all appointed by our congressional members.
The same way that, no, they're appointed the same way as the state police. We are nominated. There are 3 nominations sent to the governor
From
by
each congressional district then.
Well, yes, from a congressional
Okay,
district
so
or by a university.
Okay, and then the governor appoints them.
That's correct.
So all of them voted unanimously to give those 3 individuals a pay? No, they gave you a pay raise, and then you gave the other 2 a pay raise.
The other pay raises, as I said, my chairman is a very committed and dedicated chairman. He works with us constantly. We meet twice a month before the commission meetings. I share with him what I'm doing for my
I appreciate
apartment.
you answering, but I was asking him
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
question.
I'm sorry.
So I'll come back to you.
No.
I want him to clarify and make sure that we all understand that the commissioners agreed to give you a 13% pay raise.
Yes.
So they realized that we were jumping from.
We look at information to make that decision. We look at what Byron Decato has been at the commission for 7 years. I've been the chairman, I can't remember how long, but I've been at the commission for 22 years. I've been appointed by 4 different governors. Anyway, this isn't specifically about his specific salary, but his work that he has performed, as far as I'm concerned. I've seen 4 executive directors, and I like to try to, we had 4 great directors, but he is definitely as good as any director we've ever had. He has put the whole system, the pay system, the compensation system, in a different light than it used to be. As he said, it was always, for years and years, a 4% automatic pay raise for individuals who work for the state. It is now a system that is merit-based, but it's also market-based with a regional pay. And what's happening now is we are bringing pay up to the regional standards for state employees.
I understand what you're saying, and I would agree. I believe that Mr. Decato has thought outside the box. We did talk about this. We talked about how we keep our state employees, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to know that this does not look good, because you guys are responsible to a great degree in terms of how civil service run across the state. And so our main agency has the main guy getting a 13% pay raise, which everybody else would try to argue the same thing. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, I believe everybody should be paid what they're worth. I believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that. I always support minimum wage increase, etc. But this is not a good look.
And I don't know how to answer that, other than if I were in your seats, I guess that is correct. It's not a good look, but it is fair. And it is what we would like to do, as you said, for all state employees.
But it's not happening for all state employees. So let me go back to your 2 employees, the 2 people that you gave the pay raise to. What are their roles? Let me ask that question.
So one is my deputy director, and the second one is my chief operating officer. So that chief operating officer is responsible for, I've spoken to this commission before about our reorganization efforts at the Department of Civil Service. We restructured our department in a manner to where, for simplicity purposes, we have teams that act as consultants for our state agencies. Each of those teams have an agency relationship manager that is a liaison between myself and that agency when they're working on coming up with solutions to workforce issues. So the first employee, before we switched to that reorganization, was an assistant administrator within a compensation division. Her salary was less than her subordinate and was not equal to what the other assistant division administrator was working.
That's the 50,000 that went to 100 and.
No, ma'am. We're looking at points and times in each year. So when I'm looking at my salaries at a point in time, and I have individuals, and it's a very hard decision that you have to make because, as I said, you have to have individuals who understand the institutional knowledge, and we invest a lot into our employees with certifications for compensation, so our state can have a compensation system. But this particular employee, if you start with the first increase, the increase was addressed because she had a compression issue with her staff. The individual is then, in another year, because we have vacancies, because individuals leave, was then promoted to that division head. Okay, at that particular point in time, the compression still exists. And this is why we make it an attempt to work with state agencies to require them, if you're going to give an employee compression pay more than one fiscal year, you come to our department and you talk to us and you give us the justification for that so we can ensure that what is being done in the best interest of the state. So,
Wait a minute.
Mr. Chairman,
Wait, I don't
go
mean to
ahead.
butt in. You said the reason was the retention, but you used compression as the mechanism to give the big pay raises, right?
that is one of the tools. Optional pay as a whole,
But-
optional pay,
But
Chairman,
you,
as
you
an
were trying to
optional.
retain, but you didn't use a retention methodology. You used a compression
It
methodology.
doesn't exist. There is an optional pay rule that has tools. If you have a toolbox to fix a problem, you are going to use the tools that you need to fix a problem. We do not have a rule that addresses retention. We need one. We need one drastically. But we need help of this body for funding for that. And we need appointing authorities to be able to make decisions and say, yes, this is the critical person I have to keep, and make that tough decision when it's going to demoralize the rest of the staff because they don't have the ability to get it.
So
But-
let me do this right quick. The deputy director was making how much and now make how much?
The deputy director, so these are salaries that I'm going to give you since I became director of the department, okay? And these were the salaries that were used in the local news station. The director was making $85,779.20. His pay is now $143,811.20. Those payments, 4 of them were given to him for compression. Again, we use the toolbox, which that toolbox is optional pay that consists of compression, it consists of additional duties, and it consists of matching a job offer, all in an effort to...
So you used the retention because he was offered an additional job. You use that as part of your compression?
No, he had compression in his job with his subordinates at the particular time, and we addressed that. What I'm trying to explain is that optional pay is a broad rule, and there's different sections, and agencies are going to utilize those different mechanisms, those different tools within the rules, if an area exists that they can fix in an effort to retain their employees. So I could have said, this individual supervises people who make more than this individual makes. If this was a position that was not a critical position, I may have chosen not to address that. But I knew that this was a critical position. I knew that this individual had been offered jobs before in the past and has stuck with us and retained with us. So yes, I used the compression pay in order to keep that institutional knowledge within my department.
Chief operating
Yes, ma'am.
individual. So I assume that I heard you say he, so that's a male.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief operating person is a female.
Yes, ma'am.
What was her starting salary and what is it now?
Again, when I became director, she was
Make sure you say the date.
yeah. When I became director, and so she was making $85,779 in 2015, and then her last payment that she was
Wait. The deputy director and the chief operating person were making the same?
the oh, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. The in 2015, the chief operating officer was making $54,849.60, and her job title was at that particular time a human resources supervisor. So in my department, we have all HR professionals within my department. So you have an HR analyst, a specialist, and then a supervisor. And then you can move up for promotional opportunities to an assistant division administrator, a division administrator, and then we have a job which is a statewide program manager that we use as a chief operating officer. This individual was selected and promoted to those particular positions. So all of the pay, to paint the picture that this was just arbitrary, is not the case when in fact she received what was due to her.
So what did she go to?
She is currently making $124,904. And it's important to point out that that last particular pay increase that I granted to those employees, when I went to my chairman, I had an individual who was another statewide program manager within my department making $125,000. I made the decision for better efficiencies within my department not to fill that position. So that particular individual left to go to another state agency. When that position became vacant, I reorganized my department and I abolished that position, which gave the deputy director four additional divisions within my department, and then another probably four to our chief operating officer.
Okay, the chief operating officer started off at a different position. When she became the chief operating officer, what was she making? Or did she just become the chief operating officer?
No, ma'am. She became the chief operating officer in 2020.
Okay, and what was she making in 2020?
In 2020, when she became the chief operating officer, she was making $92,851, supervising individuals who made more than her.
So you have how many employees you have? 170?
103.
103.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the 103, we're going to take these two out, correct? So it'd be 101?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those 103, did they receive a pay raise?
They receive
101.
101. They receive every July 15th. So there are multiple things. We hire entry-level positions out of college. Those individuals are hired as HR consultants. Within their job series, not only do they receive a market adjustment of probably 4% for them because they are below the market. The majority of them are going to receive a market adjustment on July 15th of every year. They also, as they progress through their series, they go from an HR consultant A, B to a C. Those come with corresponding adjustments. It may be 7% and then 10.5% after they have served a particular point in time in that. And then if they are eligible for different types of promotions, they would get promotional pay. But there were
I'm going to just stop you right there. Has any of these 101 received anything other than a market adjustment?
Yes,
right?
Since I've been director, I've granted 31 optional payments.
And how much are they on average?
On average, they would be anywhere from 5% to 10%, as the rule allows.
But these two, because I see you got a position change, which requires some adjustment. Now, I'm trying to do the math right quick. This 92,000 to 124,000 in less than a year, right at it, maybe a year and a half during the pandemic. It's seemingly quite right at $30,000.
Yes, ma'am.
And how did their job responsibility change during the pandemic?
The job responsibilities during the pandemic, all of our job responsibilities changed. Every classified employee here took on additional work. When the individual was a chief operating officer, again, what I was doing was trying to get her salary comparable to her peers and to what other individuals in state government make for that level of responsibility. I had the ability, just like every other agency, to use the tools that I use to do that.
I'm just gonna say this, and I'm gonna let it go for right now. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. I understand your justification, but it's not a good look because everybody can say the very same thing, but nobody has the latitude, nor do we have the money. And then the rationale, or what is it doing to the other employees? Do they seem to be less significant? And I would doubt that they are.
No, they are not.
But so the two people that received the raise, their ethnicity are?
One is a white male and the other is a black female.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay, Senator Tarver.
In making your adjustment, do you look at other things like how much the private sector pay for insurance?
What we look at is we have.
Because you know our insurance, we have a good system, insurance system in the state.
We do offer a competitive insurance. We simply, when we do salary surveys, are we including?
No.
It's salary only. When we are looking at other, we do the Southeast
Why don't
region.
y'all revise that and look at other things?
Well,
Okay?
number one is because we don't have the data for private industry, because private industry does not share their data. It's only in public entities that employee salaries are public knowledge. So what we do is we work with our partnering states in the southeastern Louisiana, and we see what they are making salary-wise as far as their public employees, and then whatever information we have through salary surveys that we purchase through reputable salary organizations, we use that.
Well, let me say this to you. It looks bad what y'all have done, okay? And what really make it, private enterprise don't have the luxury of what you're doing. Private enterprise, like the days off. The state give a lot of days off. I run a business. I don't get those days off. The insurance that we have to pay is much higher than the state, much higher. I mean, something like maybe 150% higher sometime. That is what you need to look at. The retirement portion is a lot different in private enterprise. And you just can't look at one area. You have to look at all the areas. Okay?
Certainly, we take all of that
No,
into
and the
consideration.
retirement, the insurance, the time, all, you know, in my business, and I have two businesses, I don't give the time like y'all give off. I couldn't afford to do that. Okay? I don't know how many days a year y'all have off, but I tell you one thing, it's too many. It's too many. If I give that in my business, I would not have a business. I'm gonna be honest with you. What looks bad with you all, like, I don't like to mention names, like the operating officer in 18 might have made 62,000, what the paper said, and now in 21 they make 125,000. That's look bad, smell bad. And the people who out there working that's under them are not getting the same recognition. That is what makes it look bad. And let me tell you something, it make all the legislators look bad. It make the whole state look bad. And that is what we're concerned about. I'm not doubting that everybody do need a raise, and it's hard to keep people. It's hard to get people to work. You think it's hard to get people to work in government, try private enterprise. Everywhere you go, there's openings.
Yes, sir.
Everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the reason why it looks bad for the state. And if the elected employees, they put pressure on us, we have to deal with you all. And the people are turned off with things like that. And that is what we are concerned about at this particular time.
And I understand that, Senator Carver.
But start looking at the insurance.
And I want to say we
put
did-
everything in the category.
Yes, sir.
Just don't look at pay raise. Look at the insurance, how much they're paying, and you can find it for private enterprise. You can call the insurance company and find that out, and they'll tell you. It'd be much, much more.
Yes,
and you have state insurance to your kids to the 26. That's a benefit. All of these are benefits. They might be hidden, but let me tell you something. If I pay insurance about $400 a month, if I had to go to private enterprise, it cost me $700-800 a month for the same identical thing. Mm-hmm. And that has something to do with it. And you need to start looking at things like that also.
Yes, sir.
You done, Senator?
I'm through.
Okay, Senator Henry.
Yeah, all all the rules and the tools that you have at
Yes, sir.
your disposal, are all those created by the legislature?
They are created by the State Civil Service
State
Commission in conjunction with any wage and hour rules require the governor's approval.
So the commission created the rules that you're using, not the legislature?
That's correct. Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay. And how do they go about that rulemaking process?
These rules have been in place for quite a while, but the rulemaking process it would be that if we were going to consider a change or an amendment to our rules, they would be promulgated in an appropriate amount of time before a public meeting.
The same APA, Administrative Procedures Act, same type of scenario?
Our Civil Service Commission has rules regarding their meetings, but yes, it's very similar. Those rules are sent to our oversight committees, which is House and Governmental Affairs and Senate and Governmental Affairs. So we receive feedback on the rules from committees from time to time. And then we have public comments, and we also work with our state agencies to determine the impact that our rules will have upon them.
But in the committees, the House and Senate, they can review them, but they can't approve them, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah, so they don't, I'm not saying that, but if they didn't like it,
We
they
certainly,
could, I mean, obviously you're taking advisement, you're not
We
just
would
gonna-
certainly be listening.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's all. So the optional pay for compression and the terminology used, that's all comes on same exact scenario, all through civil service or the civil service board.
yes, and
correct?
those rules have been in effect for years.
For
Mhm.
probably longer than you and I have been here. Okay. Could you have used the optional pay for compression to keep the nurse that
They did. So
for one and there was
For
two
one, they did. And again, we have caps. So the highest amount is 10% that you can get in a fiscal year. And the agency did that, and then they came to the commission to get the remaining percentage.
over and above. So in essence, your authority is 10. I mean, is 10%. Is that like?
Yeah, agency heads have the authority that is decentralized to the agencies. So for any of these optional pay rules, the agencies, as long as they're operating each fiscal year up to that 10% amount, they can operate how they feel, how they choose. Those payments are reported to us on a fiscal year at the end of the fiscal year and then reported to the commission. Those payments require public notice at the agency for other employees to see. But with the case with Capital Area Human Services District, they did all that they could do under their authority. They were coming to the commission to get beyond.
The compression, just
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
all right. And then when someone comes to you, I know you'd spoken to Senator Barrow, and it was more of you just look at salaries because you don't have access to the other information. And obviously, Senator Tarver mentioned retirement and other variables. Are you? I mean, I guess the part that is concerning to me is, I guess to all of us, is that our retirement is different than the private sector.
That is correct.
On the just from the basic sense of you're guaranteed a certain amount of money, and a lot of times you get COLAs along the way. Where in private sector you don't have that option. And you and I have had this discussion before on previous terms of that there's a certain I guess generation, however you want to put it, that really they don't really care about retirement. Like that's not a big factor in them. It's the salary now is more important than retirement,
Right.
which I don't really get, but I understand. That makes sense.
Right.
What I'm trying to figure out is if we continue trying to catch the market, which I can appreciate trying to do, but if we're going to continue if government is going to try to catch the market while also providing the services that Senator Tarver mentioned, retirement benefits and the health insurance, we're going to lose. The states are like, we can't keep up with that from that variable.
Right.
So what I would ask you to do is to come up with something. I mean, not today, not this moment. Come up with something that you all can present to Senate and House of Government Affairs that can address it in some way. I don't know how. You and I've dealt with you in the past, and I don't know how to do it, but we've got to do something to where there's a different strategy that we're using other than the private sector pays $100,000, so I've got to pay this person $100,000. That's not going to work for us because we can't. We will never be able to keep up, and you will be coming before us over these type of constantly.
Yeah, and that's a very fair statement, Senator Henry, and we are working on that to try to get a total compensation package for our applicants and for our state employees so they can see what am I receiving beyond my salary. You know, what is the state paying for my insurance? What are they paying for my retirement? What we're seeing in the marketplace is private industries are getting very aggressive with benefits and flexible work time as far as full-time telework. You know, we can't do that in state government. We have to have face-to-face with our constituents. The retirement issue, I do believe that individuals are looking for a retirement where they can potentially take some portion of their retirement with them when they leave state government, because the reality is state employees no longer have a 30-year at any age that they can retire. They have to work until they're 62 years old. So when I have a college graduate coming to talk to me and I'm offering them a starting salary of $36,000, and that's a high starting salary for a professional level job, and they're looking at me saying, well, I'm going to get 75 at the consulting firm down the street, and I say, well, we have good retirement. And they're looking at me saying, well, that's 62 years from now. I can't, I can't do that.
Well, but that's the part we have to evolve to.
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's because I don't want to go back to the Jindal days where they just cut the budgets to where you couldn't do it anymore, right? That's the other option.
Right.
The worst option is if you don't have access to the money, you can't give it.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't benefit you either. So we don't want to go back to that, but we can't keep doing what we're doing. So this is your world.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to give us some options that you may not like,
Mm-hmm.
and we might not like, but it might be the reality of where we are. So that's all I'm asking you all to do at some point in time to avoid this, because this isn't going to go away.
And I certainly appreciate that, and we welcome all the input from this body.
Why
And,
you got to give the input, not us. You
Yeah.
give us some options, and
We'll give you
don't-
some options,
Don't
and-
make them the ones you like. Don't bring me 6 things that everybody has agreed with, because that doesn't exist. I need things that you don't want to do, but that we have to do. That's what I need from you all.
Yes, sir.
That sounds fair?
Sounds very fair.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Senator Abraham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to kind of drill down on one example so I understand it. I understand compression pay, understand option pay, right? So going back to the employee that made $54,000, okay? In 2020, that person was raised from 54 to 92, right? That's what you said, I believe I wrote down. How
No.
much is that true?
No, sir. So the individual that was making $54,000 received a promotion, which came with a 7% that any other classified employee would receive.
Okay.
They also received a general increase in 2018. If you recall, state employees got a across-the-board pay increase of 2%. This
Okay.
individual received that. And then the individual, for that particular point in time, in 2018, when I evaluated her salary and my staff salary and saw that she was making less than her subordinates, I addressed that.
That's the compression pay.
That's the compression issue. She got 5%. And then she got a market adjustment of 4%. And then she continues to, at this particular point in time, this individual got another promotion. We had a vacancy within our department.
That was the promotion in 2020.
The 2020 was to a statewide program manager. This individual promoted 2 times.
Okay, so what was her pay in 2019?
In 2019, prior to going into the statewide program manager, she was making $86,707.
I got it. Okay, so 86 went to 92. Then tell me from the 92 till the 124, how much of that was compression? How much of that was option pay?
Okay, so from only one of those was optional pay. The other was she got 2 market adjustments, and she also got promoted to that particular job.
Well,
So after
she got promoted again in
no, after she was after she was promoted in 2020,
correct.
she only received a market adjustment of 3% the next year. The following, she received a 2%, and then I granted a 10% optional pay for compression for the last payment.
So
Is that-
you did the option pay to get her from 92 to 124. That was the biggest jump, but most of that was option. The rest was the 2%.
Yes, it was only one optional pay.
Okay, so you still consider optional pay, but it's based on compression? I'm
Yes. So optional pay has different components. So
That's what you can go up to 10%.
the ci-
Compression is the matching of the salaries.
The compression is what compression is can be a multiple of things. Compression can be that I supervise somebody, and that as a supervisor, I may make $50,000, and my subordinates may make $80,000. An appointing authority may want to address that. They don't have to, but we do have appointing authorities that address those things. You may have an insignificant amount in pay, but a significant amount and a difference in job duties, responsibilities, education, credentials, those things. You may want to also address that. That is allowable under compression. I believe the news story indicated, they gave the example of the Office of Motor Vehicles, that the Office of Motor Vehicles received compression pay in multiple years because the agency was trying to get them to a point where they were equal to their peers and their responsibilities. I want to point out that the particular news story led the public to believe that I took that money back from those employees, when in fact, the commissioner of the Office of Motor Vehicles came before our commission, worked with us, provided their justification, and the commission unanimously approved those payments. Those individuals did not lose one penny.
Okay. All right. So in that example, I want to, I know we've talked about this enough, but in that one example, you did not have to go to the commission
No, sir.
on this particular person. It was in your purview to do it.
That is correct.
All right. That's
Yes.
it. All right. Thank you.
All right, I guess I got one or two more questions right now. Those two positions under your control, under you,
Yes, sir.
how many compression raises they received in the past since you've been there?
4.
4. In how many years?
And since 2015,
So in 6 years, they've received 4 compressions.
that is correct.
Across the board in civil service.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Across the board in civil service, is there any other area in civil service where those employees received 4 compression raises in 4 years?
We do.
5 years.
I can tell you that I have reviewed the reports that have been submitted to the commission. There were approximately in that time period 192 classified employees who received optional pay more than once. That is correct.
But not 4 times.
Some of them up to 3. I don't know. I glanced at the data.
But none 4.
I can't answer. It could potentially be 4.
Well, get back to me on that. 'Cause
Will do.
I want to see who else got 4 optional raises. Go ahead. I'm going to let Senator Womack ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know enough about it to keep beating a dead horse here, but on page 10, when we look at the 22 inactive and the 23 recommended, and you look at the average salary, I'm looking at about 8% raise if you just took it across that. Is that's something that's doable? I mean, just coming out of the gate, or some of them getting 4%, some of them getting 15%? Well, how does that work?
So I think what Heather just pointed out is that we have a 27th pay period this year, so that attributes to a lot of that increase.
On that?
Yes, sir. Yes. Normally, we only have 26 pay periods a year. This year, we have an additional pay period because of the way the calendar works out.
Yes, $690,000 was the cost of the 27th pay period to
Right.
this agency.
Okay.
So you have to discount that, and that there's going to be that extra pay period in this fiscal year,
Okay. All right.
which is
Thank
an
you.
anomaly that doesn't normally occur.
That doesn't normally
And it'll
occur.
be non-recurred in the FY24 budget, so it's going to be a one-time expense.
Okay. Has the, not trying to take anything away from the committee, I understand the commission that set up. Has there ever been given any thought, because I see the struggle here of, I'm a private small business owner, so I understand exactly where this committee is coming from. Has there ever been any thought about arbitration in the two entities there that says, this is what's going on in the private market, and some representation there, as well as civil service, and looking at the benefits, looking at the total state holistically, to see where we're at? Because I personally in North Louisiana can't go back home and explain none of this to my employees, to my high-end employees, or anybody. I can't explain that except put me out of business. Case closed. It just put me out of business. On a hard bid, I walk away with it. So something, as Senator Henry alluded to, I think there's something that we've got to come up with some solutions for the taxpayer as well as the workers.
Certainly.
And I can remember, I believe, last year, year before, we kind of come to this same pinnacle here that at the end of the day, you kind of done what you wanted to do, and which left us why we've been here 2.5 hours if you're going to do what you want to do anyway. I think we need to work closer than once a year here like this and come to some kind of consensus to where we all move forward together. You're moving your agency, but you're not moving the state.
Senator Womack, we would welcome that. In the past, we've had commission study groups where we've had members of the legislature participate on our study group. But certainly, we would welcome something of that nature.
If that's happened in the past, what was the results of that? What come out of those meetings?
Out of those meetings was we completely redesigned the way that we pay our state employees. State employees were getting 4% pay increases annually, regardless of where their pay was in relation to their pay range or to their market. And this body did not appreciate that every single employee got a 4% pay increase every year, regardless of anything. We worked with the legislators that were on that body, and we came up with a plan that was defensible to our taxpayers, as far as outside of any type of optional pay mechanisms that agencies have for them to use, outside of any promotional pay, what's going to be that main driver of pay. And that's how we came up with our current system of you're either going to get 3%, or you're going to get 4%, 3%, or 2%. And this body actually funded that initial that initial general increase to get us in a position to where we raised our pay schedules. But again, as I said before, we were the only one in state government who did that. When you look at the legislative branch, when you look at the judicial branch, employees are still getting 4% or higher, when our employees are now getting, some of them, only 2%. So we need to come together, and we need to look at the state as a whole, because we're all pulling employees from one another. There may be an opening here that someone's going to leave, or an opening at my agency, or at the Division of Administration that one of your valuable staff may take an opportunity to go. So I would welcome the opportunity to sit down and level the playing field for all of our state workforce.
Well, it's pretty well said that we got to do something.
Yes, sir.
To where it's fair across the state, not just state employees. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would be welcome to my staff if I went in and said, look, from here out, you're going to get a raise every year. It doesn't matter what kind of year I have, you're going to get a raise. They'd be hired tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I know they would, but I can't afford to do that.
I understand.
In my business. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're butting heads here, and we've got to clean up. Something's got to be done to alleviate that problem, or we're going to face this every time.
Yes, sir. You're completely correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator Womack. I guess finally, the biggest rub was the amount of the raises and percentages. My last question to you: before you received this $20-something thousand raise, were you already the highest paid person in civil service?
No, sir.
Who makes more money than you do?
There were approximately, at that point in time, maybe 15 or 14 employees that make more than I did at the time.
And what was their classification?
Classification could have been anything from a deputy secretary, and for classified workforce, a pharmacist, a warden. I can get you the information.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Senator Harris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Byron, thanks for being here and answering the questions that the committee has. I wanted to wait to the end. My question is not for your department, or it's not really a question, but one, I appreciate you giving me a return call, the other day. We didn't get a chance to connect, but I wanted to definitely talk to you in reference to the Flood Protection Authority East.
Yeah.
We have Mr. Wagensback that's in here, our legislative auditor, and just for the record, members, there's currently an audit that's being done when it comes to Flood Protection East. What we're talking about right now is also happening within that agency. And I just wanted to make sure that we put that out there for this committee to know that that's not just unique to you. Mm-hmm. It's happening other places. And we have situations there that I'm told, and it will probably come out, where we have unclassified employees going from $60,000, $70,000 to $140,000, $150,000. So this is not something that's unique, and I just want to make sure that this committee knows. And again, I sit on the audit advisory. The legislative auditor is in here, and there's an audit going on now. But these conversations have been put to members of that board that is 100% gubernatorial appointed. And these things and these raises and other things that we're talking about, the administration didn't know about it. To your point, when we talk about Commissioner Dodd, I've had this conversation with the governor and his people. They didn't know about the raises and the things that are happening there. And it's, in my humble opinion, that it's being run like a boys' club. We pay whoever it is we want to pay what we want to pay them. We don't pay people that should receive this sort of payment. We don't pay this person, but if we're friends, excuse me, if we're friends, you get paid. And it's really a problem. But I wanted to make sure that I put that out there. I have legislation right now that's there to try and address, certain issues. It hadn't been published yet, but I'm just letting you all know that when you see it, it's to try to address some of these issues that we have there. Because what's going on, in my humble opinion, there, it should not be happening in that way. And it has been addressed with certain members of that board, and they've pretty much just turned a blind eye to say, okay, we hear you, but we're going to continue to do what we're doing. So again, I appreciate the call back. I will be talking with you in reference with them from a civil service standpoint with that. But members, I just wanted to wait to the end to say that, because you've been at the table addressing your department directly. But that's something that I have a serious issue with. And again, an audit is being put together now in reference with the Flood Protection Authority East. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to ask one more time for clarification. In state civil service, are you the highest paid employee? Not statewide, civil service.
Civil service, yes, as an agency head. Mm-hmm.
Well, who were you talking about a while ago when you said you weren't?
You asked a question about all classified employees in the state.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I said civil service.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant all
I'm
classified
not talking
employees.
about all classified
No.
employees.
No.
So at civil service, you are already the highest paid employee
Yes,
before you received a $20,000 raise.
that is correct.
Okay. I didn't think that was the correct answer you gave me. I just
Yeah,
want
I
to clarify
apologize.
that you
Yeah.
understood it. All right. Thank you. Any other questions, members? We're done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, members. Appreciate it.